She doesn't raise her voice when something feels wrong. She doesn't argue to prove a point. And she definitely doesn't beg for clarity. A Sigma woman notices, then she remembers. Not loudly, not emotionally, but deeply. There are certain things she can overlook. Small mistakes, human flaws, moments of confusion. But mind games? Those she never forgets. Because to her, mind games are not accidents. They are choices. And once she sees the intention behind them, something inside her quietly shifts. She doesn't react immediately. That's what most people misunderstand. They think silence means tolerance. They think calmness means ignorance. But in reality, she's observing everything. And once she understands the pattern, she doesn't fight it. She exits it. 1. The game of inconsistency. It always begins subtly. One day, attention feels effortless. Messages come easily. Energy feels present, warm, intentional. Then suddenly, it changes. Replies become delayed. Conversations feel dry. The same person who once showed interest now acts distant without explanation. Most people chase at this point. They question, they overthink, they try to fix what changed. But a Sigma woman does something different. She steps back, not out of fear, but out of awareness. She notices the shift, but she doesn't confront it immediately. Instead, she watches, because inconsistency is never random. It's a pattern, and patterns always reveal intention. She starts asking herself quiet questions, not, what did I do wrong? But why does this energy feel controlled? Because deep down she understands something most people ignore. Inconsistency is often used as a tool, a way to create confusion, a way to make someone crave the version of you they first experienced, a way to pull them closer without giving them stability. But a Sigma woman doesn't chase stability from others. She already has it within herself. So instead of leaning in harder, she leans back. She reduces her effort. She mirrors the distance, not as a game, but as a boundary. And this is where everything shifts, because the person playing the game expects reaction. They expect questions, emotional responses, maybe even desperation. But they don't get any of that. They get calm distance. And calm distance is something they can't control. That's when they usually return. Suddenly the energy is back. The attention feels familiar again. They act like nothing changed. But she notices something important. Consistency that disappears and reappears isn't consistency. It's control. And once she recognizes that, something inside her closes. Not dramatically, not visibly, but permanently. She doesn't argue about it. She doesn't explain it. She simply stops investing emotionally. Because to her, someone who plays with presence will eventually play with trust. And she doesn't build anything meaningful on unstable ground. So she stays calm. She stays polite. But she's already gone. 2. The game of selective attention. This one is more subtle. It doesn't come with obvious distance or disappearance. In fact, on the surface, everything may look fine. They respond. They talk. They stay around. But something feels uneven. They give attention, just not when it matters. They notice others but overlook her. They engage when it benefits them, but disappear when she needs depth. It's not absence, it's imbalance. And a Sigma woman feels that instantly. She notices how conversations shift, how her words are sometimes acknowledged and sometimes ignored, how certain moments are met with interest, while others are brushed aside like they never mattered. She doesn't call it out right away. Because again, she observes first. She pays attention to patterns. Does he listen when it's convenient? Does he engage only when he's in control of the conversation? Does he ignore emotional depth but stay present for surface-level interactions? These are not small details to her. These are signals. Signals that tell her where she stands, without needing words. And once she understands that, she adjusts quietly. She stops over-explaining, stops offering depth where it isn't valued, stops trying to be fully seen by someone who only chooses to see parts. Because selective attention is not confusion, it's choice. And she doesn't compete for someone's focus. If someone can choose when to value her presence, she can choose when to remove it. What makes her different is how calmly she does it. No accusations, no emotional breakdowns, no long explanations. She simply becomes less available, less expressive, less invested, and eventually, less present. Because to her, connection is not about being noticed sometimes. It's about being respected consistently. And once she feels that imbalance, she doesn't try to fix it. She withdraws from it, silently. 3. The game of emotional testing. This is where things get deeper. Because not all mind games are obvious. Some are disguised as curiosity, as jokes, as just seeing how you react. But a Sigma woman sees through it. She notices the subtle pushes, the small comments designed to trigger a reaction, the moments where someone says something slightly off, just to watch what she'll do. Maybe it's a comparison, a mention of someone else, a statement that feels intentionally provoking. Most people react immediately. They defend, they explain, they try to prove something. But she doesn't. She pauses, because she understands something important. People who test your emotions are not trying to understand you. They're trying to measure how much control they have over you, and that changes everything. Instead of reacting emotionally, she becomes still, not cold, but controlled. She responds minimally, keeps her tone neutral, doesn't give away what they're looking for, and that creates discomfort, because emotional tests rely on reactions. Without reaction, there is no result. But she doesn't stop there. She also evaluates the intention behind the behavior. Was it insecurity, ego, a need for validation, or something more manipulative? Whatever it is, she remembers it. Because someone who tests your emotions once will do it again. And she doesn't build closeness with someone who treats connection like an experiment. So she keeps her distance. Not immediately, not obviously, but internally she draws a line. She becomes more private, more guarded, not out of fear, but out of clarity. Because to her, real connection doesn't involve tests. It involves trust. And once that trust is questioned, she doesn't try to rebuild it forcefully. She simply stops offering access. 4. The game of half-truths. This one is dangerous because it doesn't feel like a lie. At least not at first. It feels like honesty, just incomplete. A Sigma woman listens carefully, not just to what's said, but to what's missing. She notices when stories don't fully align, when details feel slightly off, when explanations answer questions, but leave gaps. And those gaps matter, because half-truths are not mistakes. They're controlled narratives, a way to appear honest, while hiding what truly matters. Most people ignore this. They accept the surface. They trust what sounds reasonable. But she doesn't. She observes consistency over time. Do actions match words? Do explanations stay the same? Do details feel natural or constructed? And when she starts seeing cracks, she doesn't confront them immediately. She collects them. Because truth reveals itself through repetition. And eventually, it always does. When it does, she doesn't explode. She doesn't create drama. She simply understands something clearly. If someone can hide parts of the truth, they can hide intentions too. And that's where she draws the line. Trust for her is not built on words. It's built on alignment. And once that alignment breaks, so does her willingness to invest. She doesn't argue over details, doesn't demand full explanations, because she already knows enough. And knowing enough is all she needs to step back. Quietly. 5. The game of delayed respect. This one takes time to reveal itself. At first, everything feels normal. There's conversation. There's interaction. There's presence. But something is missing. Respect. Not in obvious ways. Not through direct disrespect, but through delay. Respect that only appears when it's convenient, when it's needed, when it benefits the other person. A Sigma woman notices this slowly. She notices how boundaries are treated, how her time is valued, how her words are received, and more importantly, how long it takes for someone to treat her properly. Because respect is not something that should be earned over time through tolerance. It should be present from the beginning. And when it's not, she pays attention. She notices the small dismissals, the moments where her standards are tested, the times where she's expected to accept less before receiving more. And she doesn't accept that, not loudly, not dramatically, but internally, and she decides. Because delayed respect is not growth, it's calculation, and she doesn't wait to be valued. She simply stops offering value where it isn't recognized. She doesn't announce her decision when it happens. There is no final message, no dramatic shift that others can clearly point to. From the outside, she looks the same. She still speaks when spoken to, still carries herself with calm composure, still moves through the same spaces without disruption. But internally, something has already ended. Because once a Sigma woman understands the pattern, she doesn't need confirmation. She trusts what she sees. And more importantly, she trusts what she feels. There's a moment most people never notice. It's the exact moment she stops explaining herself. Not out of frustration, not out of anger, but out of realization. She realizes that explaining herself to someone who plays mind games is like offering clarity to someone who benefits from confusion, and she refuses to do that. So she becomes quieter. Not distant in a cold way, but distant in a self-protective way. She answers less, shares less, reacts less, because she understands something most people learn too late. Energy is a language, and when someone misuses it, she doesn't correct them. She removes access to it. At first, the other person may not notice, because she doesn't make it obvious. There are no sudden changes in tone, no visible tension, no arguments that signal something is wrong. But slowly, the connection starts to feel different. Her responses become shorter. Her presence becomes lighter. Not because she's losing interest, but because she has already lost trust. And for her, trust is everything. Without it, connection becomes meaningless. This is where most people make a mistake. They assume she's just going through a phase. They assume she'll return to how she was before. So they continue the same behavior, the same inconsistency, the same selective attention, the same subtle test. But now she sees it all clearly, and clarity changes everything. She begins to detach, not suddenly but intentionally. She stops waiting for replies, stops checking for attention, stops giving importance to things that once mattered. And the most dangerous part? She does it peacefully. No resentment, no visible anger, just quiet acceptance. Because once she understands someone's pattern, she doesn't try to change it. She simply chooses whether she wants to stay connected to it. And most of the time, she doesn't. There's something powerful about a woman who leaves without chaos. No raised voice, no emotional scene, just absence. And absence, when it comes from a Sigma woman, is never accidental. It's deliberate. Eventually, the shift becomes noticeable. The person who once had her attention now feels the distance. They may try to reconnect, send a message, start a conversation, bring back the same energy they once gave. But something feels different. Because now, she's no longer responding from emotion. She's responding from awareness. And awareness doesn't ignore patterns. When they try to pull her back in with charm, she recognizes it. When they attempt inconsistency again, she expects it. When they offer attention only when it suits them, she no longer values it. Because once she has seen behind the behavior, she cannot unsee it. And that's what makes her different. She doesn't get stuck in cycles. She doesn't repeat lessons. She doesn't stay where clarity has already shown her the truth. Instead, she moves forward. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. People often misunderstand her silence. They think she's unaffected. They think she didn't care enough to react. But the truth is, she cared enough to observe. And once she observed enough, she no longer needed to react. Because reaction is for uncertainty, and she is no longer uncertain. There's a certain strength in walking away without explanation. Not because you owe silence, but because you understand that not everyone deserves your words. A Sigma woman doesn't explain her departure to someone who created the reason for it. She assumes they already know. And if they don't, that only confirms her decision. Time passes, and the connection that once existed fades. Not with conflict, not with unresolved tension, but with quiet distance. And in that distance, she finds something important. Peace. Because at the end of the day, she doesn't fear being alone. She fears being in the wrong energy. She fears investing in something that slowly drains her without giving stability in return. And once she recognizes that kind of environment, she removes herself from it completely. Some may call her cold. Some may say she overthinks. Some may believe she leaves too easily. But none of them understand the depth of what she sees. Because a Sigma woman doesn't walk away from potential. She walks away from patterns, and patterns are rarely wrong. She doesn't hate the person. She doesn't carry bitterness. She doesn't even wish anything bad for them. She simply disconnects, because to her, detachment is not punishment. It's protection. There's a quiet discipline in choosing yourself without needing validation, in walking away without needing closure, in ending something internally before it breaks you externally. And that's exactly what she does. She rebuilds her energy, returns to her own rhythm, refocuses on what actually aligns with her standards, because her life was never meant to revolve around someone else's inconsistency. And here's what most people don't realize. When a Sigma woman leaves, she doesn't come back the same, not because she's changed negatively, but because she has learned. And learning creates distance, even if paths cross again, even if conversations happen again, even if familiarity returns for a moment, the depth she once offered will not, because she doesn't reopen doors that once showed her why they needed to close. She may smile, she may speak, she may even seem the same, but internally, she has already moved on. That's the part people never fully understand. Her silence is not confusion. Her distance is not weakness. Her absence is not accidental. It is intentional, because a Sigma woman doesn't lose people. She releases them. And once she releases someone, there is no noise, no explanation, no second version of her waiting to try again. There is only peace, and peace to her is worth more than any connection built on mind games. That's why she never forgives them. Not out of anger, but out of clarity, because once she sees the truth, she never unsees it.